Hello, everyone. Thank you guys for joining me today again for another chit chat. Today, I want to focus on some specific areas or one specific area of my life that I have struggled with. I am not entirely over it, but I'm still working on it and still in progress. I want to start off by saying thank you to my current subscribers and those of you who have subscribed recently. I truly appreciate your support and I thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, even if it was not what you initially started following me for. So, based on that, let's go ahead and get started. So, I do have my little cheat sheet here because, I tend to go off topic or, get sidetracked. So, I wanted to make sure I stayed on track because of what it entails. So basically, one of the issues that I've been having in my life for as long as I can remember was, just decisions I was making, ways I was looking at life, just looking for value in people. And I kept wondering why I had that kind of mindset. So as I grew along in my more adult years or later adult years of life, I realized one of my struggles would be self esteem. So today I want to address self-esteem because I did not understand what low self-esteem was or what it entails, and I did not recognize that I was actually swimming in that area. So let's go ahead and get started with here. So basically, low self-esteem, from my own research and just getting it together, is basically a pattern of viewing myself as less value, less capable, or less worthy than others. It affected the way I thought about myself, the emotions that I experienced, the relationships I accepted, and the decisions that I was making. So basically, it 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 was a driving force for the most part of my entire existence as far back as I can recall. So, one of the things that I did was I kind of listed the areas that it affected and how, just so that you can, if you are experiencing this, then maybe you can identify and realize and find ways. And of course, I will give some kind of practical ways to help you to um, overcome, you know, as time goes on to overcome it. Okay. So, if you are feeling unworthy and not good enough, which was one of my issues. I was afraid of fear of rejection. And it could be from anyone. I just wanted to be liked. I didn't want anybody to see me as a bad person. I didn't want to lose friends. It was like it was important to me that people saw me in a positive light. So, fear of rejection, fear of failure. I would not even try to attempt anything that would require me to put myself out of my comfort zone because I was afraid of failing. And I still struggle with it, but not to the extent I used to before. Example, doing this video here, that was something I would never envision to do because I was so determined not to fail at anything. I stayed in my comfort zone. Okay. I had a lot of insecurity about myself as a woman, and of course, self doubt. I wasn't capable, I couldn't, all of the negative things that encompassed what low self esteem embraced. Okay. I was jealous of other women. And when I say jealous, I didn't mean I was necessarily jealous of their lifestyle per se, but I was wondering maybe something is different about them that makes them better. I used to look at their shape, their, how they took care of themselves, just everything about them and feeling like as if, well, they're so put together, and why is it that I'm not finding myself in this position? So I had this degree of jealousy. I also had, with the insecurity, I felt that between myself and maybe another woman, another beautiful woman, that a man will automatically leave me and go to another woman because she's beautiful, she's, attractive, she has nice skin, she's always looking. I don't know, you know how it goes for jealousy. Also a lot of guilt, guilt of about decisions I made that produce negative outcomes. It's like I just felt that I should have thought better. So I've always been hard on myself about that. Then um I used to feel or have anxiety as to what others will feel about me. I always wanted to have the first impression, like they say, be the lasting. I wanted to come across as nice. I wanted to come across as just this bubbly, uh, bouncy person, that everybody would automatically gravitate to. I'm not saying it's not me on the whole, but I took an extra amount of time to get to that place. Okay. Sometimes I felt basically powerless over situations because I wanted to be in control. That was my way of allowing myself the permission. As long as I can control this situation, then everything will work out in my favor, which it never does. But, control is not good either. So basically, as far as, you know, just the whole low self-esteem, I have a greater appreciation for it, and that's why I feel that God had led me to share with you the things that I have been through and what I have done to help me get over those obstacles. Okay. And as a result of decisions I've made due to low self-esteem, I stayed in unhealthy relationships because I was afraid of being alone. I also accepted disrespect, neglect, and mistreatment because I felt I that's all I deserved, basically, and that if I were to lose that, then I would have nothing. So if that's you, it's okay. You're not alone. That's why I'm sharing this with you. I ignored red flags because I felt that being chosen by someone felt more important than being treated well. It made sense in my head, but again, all that embodies low self esteem. Okay. I was constantly seeking approval from other people. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be, when people spoke about me, that it was all positive. If anything negative came out of it, whether it's because of my fault or their fault, that felt to me like I had failed. Okay. I would say yes to situations instead of that I feel within my spirit I was not comfortable with, but I just didn't want to make waves. I didn't want conflict. I didn't want, for anybody to hate me. So I would end up saying yes instead of no when I knew very well that I wasn't happy inside. And all of that, low self-esteem can do that. Okay? I would avoid opportunities, you know, like and opportunities to advance myself. I would literally not allow it to happen because I was afraid to fail. And that is a big thing for me, being afraid to fail. Even doing this video right now and going in this, sharing myself, I was afraid that nobody would even care if I do. But you know what? I have realized it's a risk I will take because God wants me to take that step. And in that way, even if it's just one person who listens to that video and can be blessed by it, I'm okay with that. Okay. So I would be settling for less than I deserved because I felt that, like I said, anything, no matter how small it is, was better than not having anything. So I would just settle for situations, circumstances, something I do not want just because. And a lot of the decisions I was making was based on fear rather than wisdom. So, that in itself has been difficult over the years. The other thing, too, is, and that may apply to you, but like turning repeatedly to people who have hurt you. I haven't done that, but I know there may be someone out there who has experienced that. Also sabotaging healthy relationships because healthy ones feel unfamiliar. Some of us are okay with being in an abusive relationship, or just believing and allowing to be treated anyhow, because we feel that for us to be able to um to accept love, genuine love, would mean that maybe it's going to turn out bad, so we sabotage it. And also, depending, we depend on our appearance, relationship, money, or accomplishments to feel valued. But at the end of the day, we have not looked internally to find our own value. We're looking for external things. And here are some practical guides that I want to give you, to that what I used to help me. The first thing is, I had to identify the negative thoughts in my spirit. First of all, don't hold on to "I can't," or "I am not good enough," or "I'm not enough," or "nobody will want me." If I was thinking so negatively, that I portrayed and drew the wrong people to me. So be mindful of that. Change that concept of yourself. Instead of "I can't," "I can." Instead of "I'm not enough," "I am just perfectly fine," "I am sufficient." So this is one example. Also, what I have done is change or replacing negative thoughts with truth. Example: I spoke to myself with patience, fairness, and respect. I had to have a respect for myself as a woman, what I have been through, what I've gone through. I had to look at what I gained out of it, through those experiences. And at the end of the day, I started replacing the negatives with more positives about myself. I stopped measuring myself up against others. Example: I started using my favorite scripture verse that I've shared before, Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And basically, I had to understand that all the other women I was seeing out there, beautiful, successful, their journey is not my journey. I cannot be them and they cannot be me. As a matter of fact, they may be going through more stuff than I am actually. I may be in a better place in comparison to what they may have gone through to be where they are. I mean, I don't know, but I had to stop comparing myself with other women. I also had to start learning to set healthy boundaries. That's something I'm still working on. Um, I had to understand, or I'm working to understand, that I can care about people without allowing them unlimited access. Meaning, not because somebody called me and needs me and wants me, is that I just get up and run. I had to understand that I have a life of my own. I can say no, or not now, or I can negotiate. But it doesn't. I stopped being the yes person, the yes woman. Just because I want to be liked. And like I said, learning to say no. You don't have to look at somebody to the face and say no. You can basically let them know, okay, at this time it is not, something I would like to do. Perhaps maybe later, or however you state it. Basically, you're not wanting to just agree to something that, because you don't want to be liked. Okay. And I had to keep small promises to myself, simple things like to pray daily. Okay, pray to God daily, have God a center of my life. I had to make that a conscious decision, because when I just allowed life to go as it were, I was just falling into, just like with the waves, tossing in the waves. So um I kept that promise to myself, and I have been keeping that promise. So I'm grateful about it. Okay. I had to recognize my strengths as a person. I am a committed person. I am a woman of my word. I have great work ethics and good moral values that were instilled in me from growing up. So these are my positive strengths. So I have to lean on those, and I want to encourage you to find what your strengths are and utilize it and remember them. all of that helps to increase your self-esteem. Another thing I did was choose supportive relationships. I have a few friends. Maybe I can count them on two hands. I'm not sure. But those person that I have in my life, they respect, they encourage, and value me as a person. They add something to my life. In other words, they don't tear me down. They don't, even they don't tell me what I want to hear. They encourage me, and then they help me to be better, a better person. Okay. So think about the people you have in your life. Now, please, disclaimer, I'm not saying go and start telling people to get out of your life. No, I'm just saying revisit the friends you have, see what they're adding to your life. Are they adding good value? Are they supporting you? Are you growing emotionally? Are you growing as a person? Just think about that, right? And stay away, keep your eyes open. You know, I had to keep my eyes open for relationships that tore me down. Like make me feel less of a woman. So keep that in mind. I had to stay away from disrespect. If someone makes me feel not valued as a person, then I have to revisit and ask myself, or talk to them about it. Maybe they don't realize they're doing it, but if you talk to them and there is change, then that's positive. If there's no change, then it means that they really don't care. Okay, so you want to evaluate that. And two things, last things I want to point out: forgive yourself. Okay, I had to get to the point where I forgive myself for anything that I have done in the past. And as a Christian, all of that is covered under the blood. So I do not have to allow the enemy to remind me of all these things I have done before. And then at the end of the day, I go right back into this feeling of, you know, wallowing in self pity and unforgiveness of myself. Then finally, ask for help. Along my journey to healing and increasing my self esteem, I did counseling, both with my pastor and in a women's group. And then I also have trusted friends who are Christians themselves and older women who gave me and guided me wisdom through their own, life journey as well as through the Bible, and basically get that support, that healthy support, not someone who will encourage you to do wrong or, find negatives. So you want to keep that in mind. And just as a reminder, your worth is not determined by who rejects you, who left you, and what you have accomplished, or what other people think about you. And here is a scripture verse: I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. And that's Psalm 139, verse 14 in the King James Version Bible. Yes. Healthy self esteem is not believing you are better than everyone else. It is learning to recognize that you have value, your needs matter, your voice matters, and that you can make decisions from wisdom instead of fear. So, with that said, I hope that this practical guide and, bearing myself, helps you to go along those lines. I am going to include a link to my book, that my ebook, which basically is my own personal story, my own personal struggles, and how what the things I did to overcome. I will leave the link in the bottom, and feel free to go ahead and get it, read it, and see if there's anything from it that would help you along your journey. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each one of you, and I am just so happy that I have finally decided to do what God asked me to do, which is to share my testimony to be a blessing to others. Enjoy the rest of your day and week. Bye.